then I'm juggling koalas, Australia Zoo, and snake catching and Wildlife Unleashed. And then so something had to give. So left Australia Zoo, and then I'm koala tracking, snake catching, and doing Wildlife Unleashed. And Adel's left and gone to Lone Pine. And then, obviously work built up with Wildlife Unleashed, and we managed to get to the stage where we could both quit our jobs, and now we're here. We saw a snake on a hill, and we both jumped out of the vehicle, car still rolling. I'd slammed on the handbrake. The car didn't slow down, and we're already out, and it's just taken off down the road. Doors open, middle of the night, and there's a car coming the opposite direction.
Welcome to Working with Wildlife, where I, your host, Jaden Lunt, speak to experts and enthusiasts in different fields of nature to find out why and how they are in that field. My guest today, when he was younger, flew all the way from Tasmania to Queensland just to volunteer at Australia Zoo. He fed his first crocodile on his 19th birthday and is now, with his wife, the business owner of Wildlife Unleashed. He has a lot of crazy experiences and stories that he shares with us in this episode. So get excited, and please welcome to the show, Mick Bender. Thank you for coming on to the show. I am absolutely stoked to finally meet you as such, officially, and to have your expertise and experience on the show. How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, just start off, where are you coming from? Where are you recording today?
So right now I'm in the Wildlife Unleashed headquarters in the shed. So just at our property up in Burpengary. So yeah, just in between Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast.
Yes, right on. We were just talking before, but I love Sunshine Coast. I would like to be a little bit closer, but alas, not just yet. Now, you've recently, 5 days ago, precisely, you just got back from a really cool trip. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what the purpose was and what you found down there?
Yeah, so it was an absolutely cracking trip. So we'd planned it for not that long, actually. We'd only planned it for about 2-3 weeks before with our mates that recently moved down to Melbourne Zoo from Australia Zoo. And they'd just recently bought a dual cab Hilux, so we were like, we should go across to Kangaroo Island and do a trip in your dual cab and, go see all the wildlife. Because last time I was down on KI was straight after the bushfire, so I went down with Australia Zoo and helped with all the koala recovery. So I'd seen the place absolutely burnt to a crisp, obviously, and all the, aftermath of a fire. So it was really good to go back and see how it was now that it's, regenerated. We've got about 3 years of regeneration. So it was really good to see. But the real last-minute thing that came up was actually probably my favourite part of the trip. One of the most favourite parts of my life so far was I messaged Ryan, the bloke I was going down there with, and I was like, mate, we should definitely go do the great white shark dives while we're down there. I've been meaning to do it my whole life. And he was the same. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So I got hold of my mate Colin, who's the director of Aussie Snake Wranglers, and said, mate, which company's the best one to go out with? Because he goes out all the time to film Shark Week shows. And he's like, you know what? I'm actually going out for a trip these dates, which was the exact week leading into our trip. And if you want to come along, I've got the whole boat booked. I've got the whole Rodney Fox boat booked. If you want to come out, you're welcome to. So I was like, mate, bugger Ryan. And I just booked flights down, flew straight down there. And I did ask if Ryan could come, but there was no more spaces on the boat. So I had to ditch him. And I went out for a whole week on the Rodney Fox boat for free. So it was bloody good. Got to tag along on a shoot. Yeah, it was awesome.
That's so awesome. Wow, yeah. Hey, it does matter who you know. And for a whole week nonetheless. And I guess the question is, did you see great whites?
We saw a lot of great whites. So every day we got great whites, which was good. So we rocked up at the boat and you leave the port like pretty late in the afternoon, like 5:30, which is still like 5 hours of daylight down there. And so we rocketed out to the Neptune Islands, and then they start chumming the water. First thing in the morning, we started chumming the water, and then so you got this big tuna oil slick off the back of the boat, and then we're sitting around for a couple of hours, and then we saw our first great white. And, it was so exciting. We're just sitting up on the back deck looking down, and you see the first great white, which was epic. That's the first one I've ever seen. So I was pumped about that. And then, got in the water and did 8 bottom dives. So the Rodney Fox boat's the only boat that does the bottom diving with the cage with the great white sharks. So we're on
Okay,
scuba and
does
go
that
right
mean it
down to the
goes
bottom.
all the way to the bottom? Okay, right.
Yeah. So we were sitting at 20 metres with all these great whites swimming around. So we saw probably about 15 sharks on my trip, and we got about one or two each dive, and they're just coming around, circling the cage, checking us out. And, yeah, it was bloody unbelievable.
That's so darn cool. Wow, that would have been an
Yeah,
experience. I
yeah.
have. Have you dove with sharks before?
I have. So I've dived with obviously reef sharks and stuff, like your black tip reef sharks, your wobbegongs, all that kind of stuff. But I did on our honeymoon, I made sure to ditch Adel for a day when we were in Fiji and got out on the bull shark dive. So I went out to the shark reef over there in Fiji and did the bull shark diving, which was epic as well. Like completely different experience. Like that's like right up there alongside great whites for me because we're out of the cage. There's no cage involved. And we've gone down to 30 metres and you've got like 30 bull sharks swimming around, and they're like big bull sharks, like 3.5 metre bull sharks, and they're feeding them right in front of you. And the guys with you have like chainmail gloves on, and they've got like poles to push the sharks off you. So they're just pushing sharks away from you left, right and centre, and you're right in the thick of it. So that was very cool for that reason. And yeah, great whites, obviously completely different scale though.
Yeah, valid reason. That sounds like a proper experience. I've never dove with sharks yet, but it is on something that I would like to do 100%. Wow, that's
highly recommended.
That'd be unreal. That would be an unreal experience, being that deep underwater and just seeing these massive behemoths circling and feeding right in front of you. Crazy.
Oh, the blokes I was with have dived with great white sharks outside of the cage, so it was epic spending a bit of time with those guys as well. So hearing all their
just
stories.
Hearing the story.
Yeah. So that's my next goal is get outside of the cage with the great whites.
Have you ever heard of the free diving with crocodiles? Surely.
The bloke that's done it?
Yeah. Is there only one guy that's has free dove?
Oh, no, I'm sure a few more people have, but yeah, I've seen a few videos, yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that you think is within reason, something that you would do?
Yeah, I reckon in the right setting, yeah, for sure. Like obviously you're not going to go putting yourself in a murky river, snorkeling around, trying to free dive with crocodiles, but I think in the right setting, you know, where they're out in crystal clear water and, you know, depending on the size of the croc, all these different things. But once you sort of get a bit of an idea for how crocs hunt, you can sort of work around them a little bit more after years of, you know, learning their behaviour and stuff, and know the situation where the croc might be seeing you as food or is most likely just going to be like, oh, that's weird that this animal's swimming at me. I'm just going to leave him alone and swim away. There's obviously, ways that it could be done, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that's see indeed, and see we shall. Now, I do want to eventually get into the business that you have, Wildlife Unleashed, and your experience around that, both working with the wildlife that you take care of and running a business. But I'd like to start off with your work experiences and what you've done so far when it comes to the world of wildlife.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take you back to the start. I've always loved animals. I'm pretty lucky with the family I grew up in. They've always loved wildlife as well on a different sort of level. Like they haven't really worked so much with animals, but they've always been outdoorsy. My parents have always been very outdoorsy. My dad was a scuba diving instructor and a sailing instructor. Mum was working. They both grew up in South Africa, so surrounded by massive wildlife over there. Cool. And she worked over in Namibia, and then so they've always been around it. And then my first word was snakes. So I was born in Sydney, and they'd push me around in the pram, and we'd always have like red belly black snakes in our backyard. And so I was always seeing these snakes from the pram, and I'd be pointing them out. My parents would always be saying what they are, and then that ended up being my first word was nakes because I couldn't say snakes. So
dead set. Yeah. So actual no lie, just straight up snakes. No mum, no dad. I want snakes.
No. Yeah, apparently. Really? I mean, I was there, but I can't remember it.
So, that's what I've been told. That's true.
Yeah. probably offended them in the process. But I've always obviously been obsessed with snakes. So then we moved down to Tassie when I was 2. So grew up in Tassie on a big bush block down there, 45 acres in the bush. And then we were raising wildlife. So I always, from a young age, just loved animals. So they'd buy me all these animal books and you'd watch animal documentaries. And then they started, they put us into a wildlife rehab course. So me and my mum and my dad and my younger sister, we all went and did like a wildlife rehab course. So then we were starting to rescue animals and we were rehabilitating animals and also raising like Bennett's wallabies, eastern barred bandicoots, which I've just recently found out are actually potentially extinct in the wild in Tasmania, but which is quite crazy to hear. I'm not sure if that's actually been confirmed, but crazy because we used to have like 4 or 5 of them at a time, little baby eastern barred bandicoots, raising them. So that was a bit of a shock to hear. And obviously, so that's where it all started. And then once I was old enough, like I didn't love school, so I was always like looking for other opportunities to work with animals. So I started volunteering at a wildlife park down in Tassie called Bonorong Wildlife Sanctuary. And I volunteered there every weekend while I was in year 8 and 9 and 10. And, my parents would drive me 45 minutes out there and I'd be volunteering, doing an internship. I'd be doing all the keeper talks with the Tassie Devils, koalas, wombats, and doing the keeper rounds.
So this is when you're year 8, year 9, you said?
Yeah, so I think it would have been start of year 9 I would have started doing that. So I think I was about, would that be 13, 14?
Yeah, which is crazy.
13 and 14, yeah.
That's really, really cool, and awesome that you were able to get in at that age, because my experience on the other side in Australia is that we have to be 18 to be able to work with wildlife. Yeah. And so I was going at it, and there was this have you been out to Ipswich before?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little wildlife park out here, and I went there from until I was 14 to 16 every year, just being like, hey, can I just volunteer? And you're like, no, you have to be 18. I was like, well, that sucks. So that's interesting to know, and very cool though for yourself that at such a young age you're able to do that in Tasmania. So if you want to work with wildlife, move to Tasmania. Understood. At a young age, that is, at a young age. Yeah. But yes, you were saying you were working with Tassie Devils and even doing the little talks as well in year 8, year 9.
Yeah, so I was really lucky, like you said, like pretty lucky to be able to work at that age. I don't know if it's still like that today, but I mean, this is only going back, 10, 12 years now. And so the bloke who just recently actually bought the wildlife park, Greg Irons, he'd only had it for a few years, I believe. He bought it after he'd had a big motorbike accident, and he was an absolute legend. He sort of just took me under his wing, got me involved with everything. I started that Cert 2 in animal studies through TAFE, and so there was all these like sign-offs I had to do, and then they just threw me into it. So, yeah, I think the more I could do, the less they had to do. So I was just in there chopping up all the devil food. I was doing all the keeper around, so I was really lucky. And, there was this talk that they'd do multiple times a day for guests where you start in the wombats, jump over to the Tassie Devils, give them a feed, and then go over to the koalas. And, so I got a bit of practice then, and, it was awesome. And it all sort of took off from there. I was always pestering my parents about moving to Queensland. I've always been obviously obsessed with reptiles, so there wasn't quite enough of them down in Tassie. We just had the 3 snakes and the skinks, and there's one species of dragon down there, the mountain dragon, which I had already kept, and I wanted to expand. And, so I was always pestering my parents about moving to Queensland because I knew that was such a hot spot for snakes and reptiles. So eventually they came around and they packed us all up and we moved up to Queensland when I was 14.
Wow. I mean, that is I mean, it's been said before, but that's pretty cool of your parents to change their life for the good of their kid. That's much respect there. So at 14 you moved over to Australia, you were saying? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know, mate, but Tasmania is part of Australia.
Yeah. No, it is, but
don't go offending Tasmanians here.
True. To mainland Australia.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, mainland. So moved over to mainland Australia back in 2014, and then what happened once you got back in, got into Queensland? You said that you were doing some stints in Australia Zoo before you moved to Queensland.
Yeah.
So that meant that you flew to Australia Zoo from Tasmania, which is part of Australia, and then did work at Australia Zoo.
Yeah, exactly. So again, props to my parents, because I'd be like wanting to go to. We've gone up to Sydney a few times while I was doing that course as well. So I was doing the animal studies course still, and I'd go up to the Australian Reptile Park for a stint there. So I did 2 weeks, what's it called, bloody work experience there, and then we also did the same up at Queensland. So I don't know if you've seen what the process is for becoming a volunteer at Australia Zoo, but it's a lot like becoming a full-time staff member. Like, it's pretty full on. There's serious interviews that you got to go through. And so I had to fly up for an interview, and then they passed me. So I started volunteering. So I did like 2 weeks volunteer work then, and then was still living in Tassie, obviously even more hooked on the idea of moving to Queensland. And then, they packed us all up and we moved up. And, so I'd finished my animal studies course. We moved up. I started year 11 up at Nambour High School, and, just didn't want a bar of it. So we signed up to a Cert 3 in captive animals, and I dropped out of year 11 and just did TAFE instead. So then I was volunteering 5 days a week at Australia Zoo and doing my Cert 3 in captive animals. And I did that for the entire year of, for 15 and 16 and like years old. And then I got a job as soon as I turned 17.
That's pretty spectacular. And still a job at 17. I mean, I think would still be hard, even to get that at that age. That's quite impressive. So 17, you started at the official working, and then gradually you worked your way up to the top reptile keeper.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so while I was volunteering, they'd actually offered me, again, going back to how I look way older than I am, they'd actually offer me a job and say, "Oh, do you want a job driving the shuttle?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm 15, I don't have my driver's license." And they're like, "Oh." And then they'd offer me another job, and I'm like, "Oh, I still don't have my driver's license, I'm not old enough." And they're like, "Oh." And then I'd turned 17, got my driver's license that week, and then they gave me a job in koalas. So I started in koalas and worked in koalas for about a year, which was great experience. Met a lot of legends, went out leaf cutting, which was also a great experience, working out in the bush, finding the leaf, identifying it, seeing lots of snakes in the process. So I actually caught an eastern tiger snake. The biggest eastern tiger snake I've ever seen was out leaf cutting for Australia Zoo. And it was about probably a 1.6 metre eastern tiger snake, so it was a whopper. And, then got into the rescue unit. Got into the rescue unit with Toby, and he's just one of the blokes that Steve trained. And he sort of took me under his wing, so I was working with him. And this whole time I was trying to get a job in reptiles, obviously. That was the goal. Most of my volunteering time I spent volunteering in reptiles, so I'd already, knew a lot of the team there and stuff like that, but it was just about a position opening up. And then finally a bit of a shift in management happened, and I got offered a position in the reptiles department. So, about probably a year and a half into my career at Australia Zoo, I got offered the reptiles position, and it was really good timing.
So like 18, 19,
Yeah, that's right. So I got into reptiles when I was still 18, and then on my 19th birthday, I fed my first saltwater crocodile in a show.
It's pretty legit. But you were saying it was good timing. The opportunity. What were you going on to say there?
Yeah, really good timing, because I don't know how much you know about Australia Zoo, but it's got a bit of a reputation as far as giving staff the training that they deserve and stuff like that. So it used to be even worse. A lot of people were in the department for years and years and years, didn't get up to feeding crocodiles because they just got held back. And I got in at just the right time, where a lot of staff had just left along with that previous manager. And it was a good time because they were pushing young staff up through. So me and my best mate, Nero, got pushed through the training really, really quickly. So we got up to feeding crocodiles nice and quick, and we got signed off on everything nice and quickly, and then it slowed right down again. So it was just the right time.
Yeah, dude, that is perfect timing. That is such a unique opportunity in regards to the stories that I've heard of people
Yeah.
wanting to get an Australia Zoo, and they're telling me that it's hard to get into. I was like, it's too far away
Yeah.
for me to even really consider anything serious. But now that you say that you were in Tasmania,
Yeah.
and you still volunteered. I don't know if I can say that it's too far away from me anymore. I don't know if I can use
Yeah.
that excuse. So then, so that's at 19. You fed your first croc on your 19th birthday, and your favorite croc, as far as I'm aware, passed semi recently, I think.
Yeah, so she passed while I was still there. Her name was Terra, was my
Okay,
favourite
yeah.
female anyway. Yeah, and I actually named our dog after her. She was a beautiful croc. Yeah, we all used to call her like she was just like the supermodel of the crocodile world. So, yeah, she was stunning, like really light coloured crocodile and just immaculate, no, not a mark on her, and really well
Yeah.
proportioned. You'd get some of the female crocs with a not to body shame here, but big bellies, short head, or all these things that come with. Sometimes captive crocodiles get they're not as well proportioned, whereas this girl here had that really nice big head, and we'd rock up to her enclosure and we'd just shout out terror, and she'd come all the way from the other side of the enclosure right up to you at the fence line. So she was pretty well,
That's so awesome.
yeah, I guess trained to her name to be able to thinking it's feeding time, but yeah.
Yeah, but still trained. And that's, I mean, you have had a rather large experience with crocodiles, and a large portion of your passion when it comes to reptiles is crocodiles. Where did that start at Australia Zoo, or was that innate since you were a young fella?
Yeah, so I've always loved saltwater crocodiles, and it's probably a lot to do with the man himself, Steve Irwin. So obviously, when you're a young kid passionate about wildlife, your parents are throwing you all these documentaries to just stoke the passion. And Steve obviously, was a big role model, and seeing him work with crocodiles, I saw that and I was like, I need to do that. Like, I would love
Yeah,
working with crocodiles. And then your passion grows from there. You learn more about crocs, and they are my favourite reptile. So, yeah.
just they're the cream of the crop when it comes to reptiles. Crocs are.
Yeah, that's
And
it. Yeah.
you've been up north and a fair bit as well, just on personal adventures to observe the crocodiles in their natural habitat. I would say as well. Yes.
Yeah, exactly right. So when I first started at the zoo, obviously I was in koalas. So in that time, I was obviously itching to get close to reptiles and crocs and snakes and all that kind of stuff. So my best mate Nero was in the reptiles department already, but he was there in that time where he's kind of also getting held back. He's getting the job of raking the in-betweens. He's not getting much hands-on time with animals. He's looking after the pumps. He's getting held back. Which is, again, just shows how good a timing it was when I got into the department, because I pretty much jumped straight onto his level and we took off together up the food chain in the reptiles department. And but so I went to him and I was like, mate, we've got to go up the Cape. I can't be waiting around for this croc trip opportunity in a few years' time. We need to get up there now. So I had my dual cab Hilux at the time, a 2001 Hilux, and I decked that out, bought a tinny, painted the tinny black and everything, flipped that on the roof, and we took off up the Cape, me and Nero, 18, 19, I think we're 18 years of age still. He would have been 19. And we're
That's
up
awesome.
Cape York making all kinds of mistakes.
Yeah, that would have been to go out with a mate and also be on an equal passion level. That would have been so wild. That would have been a lot of fun. Many memories
It was a
had for
good
sure in
trip.
that moment.
Yeah.
What was
We
a
left the
highlight
zoo
from that?
boys and we came back men.
That's it. What was a highlight of that boys to men trip?
Oh, that I can say on air.
Yes.
I don't know. Probably me nearly killing Nero would have been one of the highlights.
Oh yeah.
That's the part that stuck with us. I nearly took him out with the vehicle. We had the runaway Hilux that many times on that trip. The typical Hilux handbrake that can't be trusted. I learnt that pretty quick, but obviously didn't learn it well enough because we were out herping one night and we saw a snake on a hill, and we both jumped out of the vehicle, car still rolling. I'd slammed on the handbrake. The car didn't slow down and we're already out, and it's just taken off down the road, doors open, middle of the night, and there's a car coming the opposite direction. We grab the snake, it's a brown tree snake, and we're like, oh, crap, where's the vehicle? So then we're running after the vehicle, flashing our head torches at this car coming along, and car just comes past, looks at us, and then just keeps driving. And the car luckily pulled into a ditch when at the bottom of the hill was a creek. So it could have been a lot worse, could have been the end of the trip at the start of the trip. But yeah, that was the start of it. Then at the end of the trip, we were on the Steve Irwin Wildlife Reserve, and we'd been on the Wenlock River all day. The outboard packed it in, started playing up, and we had to pull into the bank, and I had to get on the sat phone. Thanks to my dad, we had a sat phone with us, and I had to call the rangers on the Steve Irwin Wildlife Reserve, and they came down, picked us up, took us back to camp, and then we had to drive back down at like 4 a.m. in the morning to go pick up the tinny. And we were doing that, and I'd parked the Hilux up on the top on the flat, run the winch down to the tinny, started pulling the tinny out of the river. Obviously, rookie mistake, never winch when you're out of the vehicle. But on my defence, I was just taking up the slack of the winch rope. So I'm just there standing with the remote, taking up the slack. But again, Hilux handbrake couldn't even handle that. The slack of the rope just comes off the ground and it pulls the Hilux forward onto the slope, takes off down to the river. Nero's right there by the river, and he tries to grab the bull bar to push the Hilux, and it just like throws him out of the way. The Hilux goes between Nero and a tree, like that big a gap. He's like squished against the tree, and the Hilux just punched into the tinny, punched a big hole in the tinny. Hilux is nose first in the Wenlock River. The outboard and the boat is all up in a tree. All our gear's floating off down the river, and now we've got a sinking Hilux and a boat up in the tree. And a mate that nearly got squashed.
What? That is definitely a top story to have. That is. I'm glad everyone's alive, but wow, that is quite the. That's hectic. Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. That's a hectic memory.
We learned a lot on that trip, but as you can imagine, we got up to all kinds of mischief out on a boat in Croc territory for that few weeks that we were up there, being 18 years of age, and we got to see a lot. It was cool. Good trip.
Wow, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds like it's a trip of a lifetime. Lifetime. So now 18, 19, 20, 21. What's happening after your 2021?
So from that point on, I was just sort of working through the ranks in reptiles, working my way up, learning as much as I can, starting to work with the venomous snakes, progressing even through the crocodiles. So there's such a strict, structured training system with all the animals there. So you start with like obviously the freshwater crocodiles and the alligators, and you work your way up to the salties. So that's when I fed my first salty, was at 19, after already doing all the freshies and the gators and stuff. And then you work your way up even the salties. So you've got the smaller 12-foot male salties, and you're doing shows in like the environmental park ponds, which are just like the dirty water ponds at Australia Zoo. And then you work your way up to the bigger crocs, which then end up being in the crocoseum. So then you're doing shows in front of 5,000 people. So that's all like part of the progression over the years. And then, 21, I was, in the crocoseum doing shows, which was, mind-boggling. That was like a dream come true. And then, got to go on croc trip, got signed off on all the crocodiles. So I got to work with all the saltwater crocodiles there. You're feeding all the ones that are off display as well. They've got a fair collection of crocodiles off display as well to work with. So we did a lot of that, and it was great. And then, kind of progressed towards the end of the line at Australia Zoo when I'd sort of been signed off on everything there was to train in the reptile department. So the next step was training to train other people. So,
yep. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when did this, I guess we'll kind of morph into the business side of things and where this Wildlife Unleashed began. I'd like to get into the beginning sapling story of where it came from and where this idea came from. You've worked with a bunch of different wildlife in Australia Zoo. You've had unique experiences that not many people get to get at the age that you were. Super blessed indeed. Now, what's the story of Unleashed? How, in regards to where it started, where did the thought come from?
Yeah, so I guess the thought kind of started, you get into that level at Australia Zoo, you starting to realise that you're not allowed to do everything that you want to do with these animals at somebody else's zoo. You get slapped on the wrist for getting too close to crocodiles when you're feeding them, or not handling venomous snakes that way, it's too risky. And then you start to go, I want my own collection. I want to have my own zoo. So that's where it stemmed from. I was like, I want to actually own my own wildlife park. So that's the goal. And then I'd met my wife in the time. Well, obviously not at that point. I'd met her and at Australia Zoo. And so I met her probably about a year or so into my time in the reptiles department. She started. Oh no, sorry, we were both in koalas. So I was in koalas. She only started maybe 8 months after me, and so I had to train her up on koalas. So this new girl started in the koalas department. I was like, dibs, and turns out she'd already was in a long-term relationship and moved to Queensland with a boyfriend. So, but.
Bummer.
Yeah,
but
don't let that stop you. No.
There's hope.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, I just had to wait it out. He stuffed up and moved out, and and then I was in with my shot. So all hope was not lost. And then I swooped in and straight into the friend zone for a couple of years.
Straight in.
Yeah.
Okay, no messing around. Friends are right.
Yeah, straight into the friend zone. Yeah. Anyway, so we'd met obviously in that time, and so we'd been dating for a couple of years by the time we're getting to this level at the zoo. And she's in the same kind of boat. She's worked her way up in the birds department. She's got the experience she wanted. Same struggles. Also wants her own place, her own facility. So we've got the exact same dream of having a wildlife park together. And then we're like, how can we do it? What's the best stepping stone towards it? And we figured best stepping stone towards it is starting a private collection that we can start right here on our property and do exhibiting shows. So get your wildlife demonstrating permit and take wildlife to other people, mobile zoo, and then build a name and a reputation in the industry through that, and hopefully work up to buying a property to start a wildlife park on. So that was the thought behind it.
Yeah, that was the beginning. And so far, how's that thought going?
Really good. Yeah, we're up to 60 animals, so 60 plus animals. We're probably, since I counted last, we're probably nearly at 70 now, because Adel was a bit of a shocker at accumulating more animals. But as you probably know, in the industry, you do need animals to be able to trade animals as well, to be able to get the animals that you want. So a lot of facilities don't buy and sell animals. It's more swapping animals. So we kind of have to get a few more animals that we might not necessarily need in our collection, but are going to help us get to what we do want in our collection. But so it's going great. Okay. Like we're flat out.
Yeah, flat out. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're busy. Like it's obviously been a gradual process. Like we started it while we were still at Australia Zoo. COVID was actually pretty much the start of how we started working on the permit process. So that was probably the slowest and hardest part about starting this whole thing, was doing the permits required to be able to start a business like this. And we're still working all through COVID. Me and Adel both got kept on all through COVID, luckily, but also unluckily. It was like everybody's complaining to us about how bored they are at home and how they want to be working at Australia Zoo. And we're like, we've got a million things we could be doing at home right now. So we had to still juggle both.
The grass is always greener.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so we were juggling both. We're working at Australia Zoo, getting all these animals, getting our permits, snake catching on the side. And then I dialed back my hours at Australia Zoo, got down to like 3 days a week at Australia Zoo. And I got a job koala tracking. So with I met Brian Coulter. So we started talking on Instagram, and he sent me a message saying there's a position going koala tracking if you're interested, mate. And I said, yeah, bloody oath. So when I met him, started koala tracking. It was a better paid gig. It was working with blokes like Brino and ex-Australia Zoo crew, learning a lot from those guys with, worlds of experience. And then I'm juggling koalas, Australia Zoo, and snake catching and Wildlife Unleashed. And then so something had to give. So left Australia Zoo, and then I'm koala tracking, snake catching, and doing Wildlife Unleashed. And Adel's left and gone to Lone Pine. And then, obviously work built up with Wildlife Unleashed, and we managed to get to the stage where we could both quit our jobs, and now we're here doing Wildlife Unleashed full time.
So awesome that you get to now do your you've made your thought become reality, and it's all awesome. It's so cool that you get to work with wildlife as well, doing what you want to do, and also running it and not getting told what to do, but you just tell yourself what to do. I guess to some extent you have to do that.
Yeah.
And with when did snake catching in all this moving puzzle pieces, when did snake catching enter the scene for Sunshine Coast snake catchers?
Yeah, so I actually worked with Stu McKenzie in reptiles at Australia Zoo. So that's how we met, obviously the owner of Sunshine Coast Snake Catchers. And then he'd just started snake catching when I met him. He just got his damage mitigation permit, just started snake catching. And so I heard about it, did the exact same thing, went and got my ticket through Gecko's Wildlife and started snake catching as well. And then, and then Stu started his own business, and then he ended up buying out the other Sunshine Coast snake catcher business from Richard Gilbert. And so I was getting calls from him. I never really sort of advertised snake catching or anything. I just always catched for him. So I was there with him from the start, which was pretty epic to see the growth that he's managed to achieve with that business.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been with him there all along, catching snakes with him. And, and then obviously, so that was when I was I was still volunteering at Australia Zoo, so I was like 16.
Wow.
Yeah, I did my DMP, and then and the first couple of snake calls I had to go to, my dad actually had to drive me because I didn't even have my driver's license yet. So, and then obviously got my driver's license when I turned 17, and then kicked off from there.
That is hectic. That's great, and you're still in Queensland nonetheless, and you're getting it at such a young age. That's absolutely unique and fantastic. At least to my ears, it's fantastic. And with so snake catching, crocodiles, Australia Zoo, you're leaving it business. What have been some of the challenges that, aside from that initial challenge, you said probably was the hardest, was trying to figure out the paperwork.
Yeah.
What was another pinnacle and super important challenge that you had to overcome to make this business work?
There's been obviously multiple different struggles along the way. Paperwork side of it's definitely not our strong suit, so that's definitely been the hardest. But yeah, we've learned so much. So from when we first started it, your collection starts to grow, and you lose a couple of animals in the process. More animals, more health risks. You get a few animals in the collection that come in with problems, and we've had to have certain animals like euthanized from bringing animals in, and then you learn you got to do quarantine because otherwise you can bring an animal in and lose your whole collection, that kind of stuff. So those are the hard things that you sort of start to learn. And it was a bit of an eye-opener because I always remember being at facilities like Australia Zoo, talking with other zookeepers, and then being like, oh, I can't believe the zoo made the decision to euthanize that animal or to do this. And then all of a sudden you realise how big a decision it is and how crucial a decision it is to actually make those hard choices sometimes when you're working with animals, and not let animals suffer, not, waste thousands of dollars on an animal that's then just going to continue to suffer longer only to not survive, that kind of stuff. So you learn a lot on that front. But yeah, those are probably the biggest challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a very hard decision to make, to take a life for the good of the life itself. But that comes with learning and experience, which is something that you and others have. With taking care of animals, managing now 70-something individuals, how do you go about, I guess, what's your routine? That means they're taken care of. You're also not going crazy with micromanaging.
So was that just asking if how it is looking after the animals? Can you just repeat that?
Pretty much, yeah. So what's your process? What's your system? So
Daily
that
system,
yeah.
Yeah. So we've actually, yesterday was a bit of a milestone. We actually put on our first casual staff member. So that's our first step to, regaining our life. But
I knew you wanted to get that on. That's awesome that you could do that. That's great.
Yeah. So we're stoked about that. So just a couple of days a week to start with, but it's all step in the right direction. But yeah, it's obviously been an absolute handful up until this point, juggling all these animals as well as doing everything else. And at first, it's juggling the animals while working other full-time jobs. Now it's juggling animals while managing the business, and also the growth of the business. You sort of realize how much time it takes to actually spend on the computer and get work, and how important that is. And then you're also trying to give the animals the best care and building enclosures and stuff like that. So it's been absolute non-stop. We basically, it's not a day that we don't work when we're at home, because obviously every day the animals need feeding and checking on and cleaning. So we might get, the middle of the day off, but the start and end of the day still ends with, cleaning, checking on animals, feeding animals, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so it's been busy, but yeah, we obviously still managed to make time to get away and do our adventures, go down to Kangaroo Island and dive with sharks, or go, to Fiji. We go on some adventures still, and that's all thanks to the mates, I guess, we made through Australia Zoo. We're lucky to know so many zookeepers, so we can ask them to look after our collection while we go away. My mum and dad, they've looked after the place a few times while we go away. So that's been our saving grace, I think. Yeah, go mum and dad. So definitely a big saviour has been still managing to get away and, do those adventures and stoke the passion.
Yeah, that's a good observation, and also tip as well. It's not necessarily a work-life balance, but it is because it's hard to really have a balance as such. But it is giving it to what you need in the moment. With this, you've had an interest in full driving and the off-road, the adventure side of things. Your car, it's a fantastic setup. I love the idea that you guys are portraying. I was a reptile demonstrator for 3 years almost, and so to see how you guys are going about it, absolutely love it. Could you run through kind of how your car is put together in a way that is systematically smooth and appealing to the onlookers?
Yeah, definitely. So I got that Troopy after a couple of years of having that Hilux. I drowned the Hilux a couple of times, so it was time to upgrade and bought the Troopy. And this was long before we'd even started Wildlife Unleashed, so it was pretty early on in me and Adel's relationship. So we bought that and then started decking that out for camping. So I got it semi-stock. It had some good modifications on it. It had, scrub bars, bull bar, had a good roof rack. It had like a turbo and a exhaust system on it, but the back was completely stock as a rock. So had to modify all that and put spotties on it for herping, and took the roof rack off, modified that for the boat, and then decked the back out with drawers. So I stripped everything out, put the drawers in the back, which are obviously great for camping, but just as good for the business. So they work really well for that. And obviously, until recently, we've just been solely relying on pretty much the Troopy as our main setup vehicle. And we got the best awning on the market, the Bush Company awning, given to us for our wedding present from from my family, luckily, because they're bloody pricey.
So nice.
And they all chipped in, and it's the best part about our setup is our awning. Everybody always asks us about our awning. We should definitely be sponsored by them, but so if Bush Company's listening, hey, because everybody asks us about it. It's just an epic canvas awning. It doesn't require poles. You can flip it out in a couple of seconds, and that's the base of our setup. And then it's grown like our setup's obviously improved over the years. We always laugh about the first setup that we did at a kids' party. We take this trestle table, and you've got all these mixed matched boxes with no labeling on them like we do now. And like these ones, and it's all looking a bit all over the shop. We got this little tablecloth over the table, and now it's all sort of coming together. We got proper tablecloths and just gradually improving everything. And now we've got a van as well. So we just bought a Toyota Hiace van, secondhand, but it's amazing for transporting. As you can imagine, we can fit our venomous snake panels and everything in there. So I used to have to take a trailer to be able to fit all our big venomous snake panels in, the big clear perspex panels for our setup. And now we can all just pile them all in there. So, we're going to work on that next and make sure that fits the Troopy theme. We're probably going to colour match it and or some kind of bush colouring. Maybe put a lift and a snorkel on it. Nah.
Maybe.
No, I won't be that guy.
Okay. But it sounds like you got a really mint setup, and so the awning is the best part, according to others. Awning is the best part. What accessory have you added in that has made the system work the best? What's the best accessory you've added to systemize everything?
The trolley, probably. We've gone through a few trolleys over the years. So initially we had this like real rubbish little timber trolley with wheels under it, and it wasn't good. You had to put straps over it. It didn't have the tires for the nice soft wheels, so the animals were riding in comfort. So we couldn't use it for the most part. You'd use it on smooth concrete, but then any other surface, you're like, this isn't working. So we'd just be running boxes back and forth. So then we got decent trolleys, and you can obviously just run the tires really soft. It's a really soft ride for the animals. We can fit all our boxes and our table and all our gear in one trolley. So that's working really well now with the new van, because we've got ramps for the back of the van, so we can literally just load the trolley at home, roll it straight into the back of the van, roll it straight out at the end. And it works so good. Whereas in the Troopy, we have to load the animals in the Troopy, load the trolley, offload the trolley, load the animals into the trolley. It's all a bit all over the shop. Yeah. So that's why the van's working so good as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And you said that your business is growing. Are you able to keep up with the demand, or is there a bit of high? Is the demand too high at this point?
There's still room for growth. You still definitely get, like in peak seasons where everybody wants to book at the same time, difficulties scheduling in how you can cram everybody in. And sometimes people just go, nah, sorry, we can't do it that day. It's got to be this day. And you're like, well, we can't do it. You've only got so many animals. We have had days where we've, even though we only just put on an official casual staff member, we have had days where we've sent, I don't know if you're meant to do this, but we've had, zookeepers from Australia Zoo and stuff, or ex-zookeepers go and do jobs for us, and they obviously know exactly what they're doing. And, we'll just get them to do a job while we go do a job. And, or I'll go to a job, Adel go to a job, and another car goes to a job. So that's about the most we can do with the amount of animals we've got at this stage. But, yeah, so as far as our calendar goes, though, our plan right now is filling up more in-week work. So our weekends are quite busy. Our school holidays are absolutely chock-a-block. Like school holidays, you almost couldn't cram another job into, which is great. And, whereas the weeks is where we need to fill up. So that's going to be pushing more for getting more school talks, getting hopefully more corporate jobs. I want to be doing more venomous snake safety courses and stuff like that at corporate, events and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's just assimilating just the experience I've had in the demonstrating industry and seeing what you're doing. I love it. I'll leave it at that. But with I want to ask about more personal animals questions. But before we do, who has been a valuable mentor as such in your wildlife career, if you can pick one? If not one, name a few.
Multiple. Yeah. I was going to say picking one mentor is definitely a challenge. I've had
It's a
so
bit
many,
unfair. Yeah, it's unfair too.
yeah. Oh, I've had so many good mentors over the years, and like even my parents are good mentors in that sense. Just the fact that they've always been helping me, especially up until this point, in your younger career, they're helping you get in the right place to be able to get the right opportunities. So, and even those younger years where we're raising wildlife at home, those were all like crucial moments for me. So they're definitely right up there. Greg Irons at Bonnarong Wildlife Sanctuary was a massive help in those early years as well, just, taking me under his wing. Then at Australia Zoo, the old crew that used to work with Steve, like Toby, Stu Gudgeon, those blokes, they all also took me under their wing, trained me as much as they could. And so they were massive mentors. After the zoo, meeting Brino, again, somebody who's worked with Steve and such a world of, wealth of knowledge, has just trained me so much and got me those epic opportunities since. And this year, hopefully, we'll actually be getting involved in some croc research, me and Brino as well, which will be pretty exciting as well. So, yeah, those would be the main ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is there anything specific that that was said or done, a moment that kind of helped you shift your perspective on something or helped you see a situation in a different light?
That's a good question. Seeing a situation in a different light. I don't know. I think like this whole process of, starting your own business has been sort of opened up a whole new area for me as places to learn, and a lot of those people that are role models in the animal area aren't necessarily a role model in the business space. So then it's trying to find role models in the business space as well, and looking at the different side of wildlife. We're learning, so much about that, and you grow up like with this feeling that you've just got to give your labour for free because it's for the wildlife. So you're there volunteering your time and, doing everything for such a minimal wage. And same with when I started snake catching, I'd even go to jobs and be like, oh, no, don't worry about it. I rescue wildlife for free. It's all good. And you're not doing yourself any favours. And then you realise that, it's not sustainable. And it sort of made me realise, why places like Australia Zoo and what Steve did, and the reason why they did that. Because if you're underselling, your wage, your rate, you're underselling wildlife. Like essentially, like everybody in the wildlife industry, they're worth a lot more, and they should be getting paid a lot more. And it's for the wildlife. The more people working with wildlife can get looked after, the more they can do for the conservation of wildlife. So that's been a definite sort of eye opener for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. I would agree. Also, yeah, with realizing your worth as such. As a younger fella, I know that personally, I let certain things slide when really it would have been best not to. But that does come with maturity, and it does come with learning. Unfortunately, we don't come out of the womb with that knowledge. It would be very helpful if that was the case. Yeah. So now with the wildlife you've worked with and the wildlife that you understand of worldwide, what is an animal that you think is greatly misunderstood, and why do you think that is?
Well, obviously there's a lot of misunderstood animals, and snakes is always going to be up there with probably one of the worst misunderstood animals. But I'm going to talk about saltwater crocodiles instead, because I think they're copping it pretty hard at the moment in the media, and snakes potentially are as well. But I think snakes is definitely very often spoken about. And I think even the people that don't understand snakes are starting to understand more that they're actually not out there to get you. Whereas there's so many misconceptions about crocodiles, like you said, they're a misunderstood animal. And the reason for that is, first of all, they're very secretive. They're an apex predator. They're a big animal that can obviously eat people. So there's all that fear around it. But I think the main thing that people misunderstand about crocodiles is obviously how their populations work, and also the fact that crocodiles dead set aren't out there to get people. They're just filling their role in the ecosystem. And if humans make the mistake of putting themselves in crocodile territory, is only when crocodiles are going to consider you as a food source. I think the misconception with crocodiles is that they are going to be out there running you down on land, death rolling you out of your Land Cruiser, coming up into your bedroom and killing you, all this kind of stuff. People don't understand that they literally are only dangerous at the water's edge, in the water, and overhanging the water. It's those three simple areas. And they don't differentiate between a human or a kangaroo. They just see it as another animal that's putting themselves in their strike range.
Animal.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the main thing that sort of triggers me with the media is obviously, and it's something that's very upsetting to see with the way Queensland especially manages their crocodile population, is as soon as somebody gets attacked by a crocodile, their first reaction is to go and shoot crocodiles and go and shoot the crocodile that did it, because there's now a chance that it's going to be a man-eater, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to me, because a crocodile doesn't learn that humans are now a target. Humans have always been a target if they're in a certain area, So a crocodile grabs a bloke fishing on the bank, he's just getting an easy feed. He doesn't then go, oh, actually I can eat people, I'll go wandering up into that town. He just goes, oh, well, I've got that animal. If another animal comes close to the water's edge, I'm going to grab that one. I don't think it changes them into a man-eater whatsoever. And it's the same with they go, oh, you can't go out on boats because now there's a man-eating crocodile. It's only going to be a risk to you if you're then dangling your arm over the water, isn't it? So that's probably, one of the ones that I find is the most misunderstood still today.
Yeah, and I reckon, and there's a guy that I'll be speaking to called Tommy. He lives up north and does crocodile photography, and has been well versed with crocodiles as well. So it's good to hear both your perspectives on this largely misunderstood creature. And then, yes, you're right. Snakes is another one, but people's perspective, I hope, is changing, very incrementally so, but crocodiles less so. And the secretive part definitely would have a part to play, because we fear what we don't understand, and it's kind of hard to understand something that's secretive as such.
Yeah, exactly.
In total. Now, before we close off and land the conversation, Mick, as a business owner and someone who is taking care of wildlife and has now brought someone in, what qualities do you look for in someone as a would-be or could-be employee?
Yeah, I try and look for somebody that's sort of got that same passion and drive that I did, especially at that, earlier stage in my career, and that I still do have. But I think you try and find those same qualities that you've got, things that you think are important, and so you do yourself, are things that you would probably want in staff members. So I guess that's kind of what I look for. And, just finding somebody that's really passionate about wildlife, obviously, somebody that's got the energy to actually deliver the right message, the people skills to be able to deliver the right message is so important in this line of work. Obviously, in the wildlife industry, there's a lot of people that don't want a bar of people, and they might not be very good at talking with people. And I also can very easily understand that. There's days where I just want to be with animals and I don't want anything to do with people, as I'm sure a lot of people feel like in the wildlife industry. But yeah, as you know, there's people, and then there's the wildlife people as well that just shouldn't be communicating that message as well. So it's also very important having that skills to be able to get that right message across. Yes. Obviously, when you set a standard with your own business and you up until this point, we haven't had a bad review. We have to try and keep that standard, So now we've got to try and make sure that she's delivering the shows at the same level that we are, and hopefully, we continue our good record with reviews.
Yeah, and also your final goal with this business, as far as I can tell, is that you will have a park of your own one day. Do you see a timeline of which this is possible?
Oh, mate, it could be any moment. So it's been a pretty exciting year. The past year, we've been working our ass off to pretty much try and get a park. And there was one that came up, and we had done absolutely everything we could to try and get this place. We actually managed to get the loan required to be able to buy this place. And then the cyclone came through in far north Queensland and flooded the place 2 meters under. And we had to retract, our plans. And we're going to have to look for a different property now. So we were that close.
But you were that close. Wow.
Yeah. So now we're, the thing with that is that we aren't necessarily at that point where we're ready to move to that next step. It's just one of those opportunities that came along, and we were like, this is a pretty hard opportunity to pass up. So we're going to do everything we can to try and make it happen. Didn't work out. And we're not too upset about it. Like, obviously, when you think it's the perfect place, which we did it for the most part, it's pretty upsetting. But I think I would have been more upset if we lost it to somebody else. At least I now know that it's not really the right place to have a park full of crocodiles when it can flood 2 meters under. So now we're just going to focus more on Wildlife Unleashed. So which is more what we needed to be doing. Like, it would have been such a struggle to pull this off. We were up to the challenge, but it would have been such a struggle. So now we're just going to try and grow Wildlife Unleashed as much as we can, get that as self-sufficient as we can. So hopefully putting on a couple more staff members over the next year or so, and growing that business and just get it really self-sufficient so we can see that it's running itself in a way, so that we can then look at that next step of buying a place and shifting everything to a on-display facility.
Yeah, man. And look, you guys are the guy and gal for the job. Your enthusiasm is very clear, and the experience that you've had already is definitely primed you for great opportunities, that's for sure. But Mick, it has been a pleasure speaking to you and hearing about your story, and also where you're wanting to go with your story. It's really cool to see what you've done with this business and with your passion. I love it to bits, and I look forward to seeing what you can do with Wildlife Unleashed.
Yeah, thanks so much, mate. And I honestly can't thank you enough for having me on. Once you messaged me, I was keen from the word go. So I think what you're doing is great as well. I'm always trying to find podcasts to listen to, and there's not actually a whole lot out there when it comes to our industry. So I think what you're doing is awesome, because we can now get inspiration from people that are much closer related to what we're doing. So I think it's really good. So, yeah, keep going.
Awesome much. Thank you very much for that, Mick. I appreciate it, man. I'll see you sometime maybe on the sunny coast, or when you're coming through doing a show.
Yeah, mate. Hopefully we can have you over sometime as well, and you can come and check out all the critters.
Don't tempt me. Nah, seriously, we'll figure that out. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have enjoyed this episode. If you'd like more information, or if you think there is someone that I should have on the show, you can find the details, such as the platforms you can reach out to me on, in the show notes below. Anything about the podcast or the podcast guest will be in the show notes. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.